is, you know, pretty much out of the realm of possibility. Compared to what's on YouTube, we can't really fail.
But I like to aim high, so I don't want to just not fail. I want to aim higher than non-failure.
Yeah. Well, I think that's your anal problem. But anyway, I'm just saying there's no point in wasting the conversation by limiting in terms of its accessibility to the hungry and starving masses. They need you, anti-bullshit man. They need you. Okay?
They got me in a limitless, endless, verbal fucking, or written rather, blog from a couple of months ago. You read that, you're never going to need me again after you finish reading that. I've written everything I need to write, pretty much.
Yeah, I know, but those arguments suck. So you know, they need to be.
But see, now that's what I probably should have done. Instead of looking to take new notes, I probably should have just copied and pasted my comments from your blog or from my comments on your video responses.
Yeah, well, true enough, but I mean, I don't. You know, frankly, I don't think sometimes we're talking about the same thing. So look, for me, I'll you know, I took some notes, so I'll go with my notes. You know, as I see it, the fundamental disagreement between us isn't so much about the absolute definition of what reality is. It's about some idea of when you have an authority, the authority, to say, oh yeah, I've got it, you're full of shit, I'll decide, you know, I will impose on the imposers. Okay, so we're basically at the point where, what's the line where I can identify that a rape is being committed or a wrong is being committed, and I can stop it. I can shoot the rapist. I can whap him in the head with a baseball bat. And that's sort of where we're at. We're at this conversation.
Rape victims don't like being raped. The majority of people who are born have no problem with having been born. So if you limited that to solely the individuals who have an issue with being born, I would say, okay, but see, that's the problem. We can't do that. We can't limit it to strictly the individuals who will go on to regret having been born, so it becomes guesswork. Whereas with something like rape, point me to a rape victim that has no problem with having been a rape victim. You're not going to be able to find that person. So that's why the analogy, all these little analogies are going to be problematic if we're going to talk about imposing on the imposers. We can impose on the rapists. There is a degree of ambivalence when it comes to imposing on the natalists.
Again, but this isn't the subject. The subject is where do you? I just said, where do you draw this line? So we draw this line for animals because we declare them too stupid. Okay, so we say for the animals don't stand up and say I don't want to play zebra games anymore. Okay, we would argue for them. I'm just saying whether the rape victim yells rape or not is irrelevant. I'm saying they're victims of child molestation. Whether the child says, I didn't mind having his dick shoved in my mouth, doesn't make any difference to me. I'm saying I know they're a victim. The fact that they're deluded assholes is irrelevant to the fact that they are, in fact, a victim. And they are creating losses that are disgusting. And the fact that they don't know it, okay, I'm saying is irrelevant to the truth of the matter.
You use the word deluded. Now, every time you use that word, I'm going to ask you what fact are they denying? And it's the same conversation. This is the way the conversation started out.
They're denying the non-existence of a God. They're denying the non-existence of hope. They're denying the non-existence of angels and other kinds of wiggly-waggly bullshit that makes them say life is good. They say life is good because they've been brainwashed to say it, not because they know it.
You believe... You said it over and over throughout the last couple of years. You actually believe that the majority of them don't believe in God. So now you're saying they do believe in God, but...
They believe in hope. Of course they don't believe in God, but obviously it is a symptom of their hope delusion. Yes, that's correct. They have a desperate, clinging hope that their life makes sense. They have no knowledge of it making sense. They wish it to make sense. They want it to make sense. They don't have a fact that just demonstrates it to make sense. They are failures and they just don't want to admit it. I don't mind calling them failures.
See, I don't think hope plays into it either.
Come up with a delusional optimism emotion. Well, what is let's come up with a word for delusionary optimism and blame it on that.
Most people don't consider themselves blind optimists.
Well, whether they consider it again.
Let me finish. Can I finish?
No, because you keep saying consider themselves, and I'm telling you, I don't give a fuck what they think. I give a fuck about what they can demonstrate. They can't demonstrate their lives to be productive. All they can do is say, oh, I think it is. Well, who they thinking it is irrelevant. It's like a zebra telling me I like being chased by lions. I don't care if a zebra says he likes it. He's an idiot.
So again, now when you use the word productive, you're shifting self-harm, and now you're moving on to the harm of the other. So if they're harming others, that's a different conversation. I'm having the conversation about them having the right to declare themselves competent to harm themselves. So let's not shift between these two as we carry on the debate. Let's stick to the right to self-harm. I'm saying there's such a thing as informed consent, which can tilt the net equation downwards, which I'm not going to say should be stopped, as long as the consent to expose oneself to a lifetime of risk exposure is of an informed nature. And I'm looking for one single fact that they would have to deny. You're going to say that they deny the non-existence of hope and the non-existence of a God. You yourself admit that religion is just a social club and they don't really believe in a God. So all these people who are supposedly the majority who are theists, you have actually come out and said you don't think they're actually theists. You actually think they're closet atheists. So we got to knock the God equation right out of the ballpark, right off the bat. The second one is hope. Can you be a little more concrete about what they are being hopeful for, please?
Well, I already did it. Optimism bias. Okay, that's called an unrealistic understanding of what they can expect from their existence. Okay, they think. Well, look, you said I had to listen to your 4-part question. Let me answer at least 2 parts of it. Their hope is being converted into an optimism that it's unrealistic. They have some sort of forced Jedi perception of reality where they're going to make their life work out and they're not going to get cancer and this isn't going to happen and that's not going to happen and their kid's going to be Einstein and all that kind of crap. It's a delusion of unrealistic expectations about what life can produce. And by the religious argument, again, I'm just going to argue that obviously people convert that into religion, okay? I'm saying they don't fundamentally believe the scriptures, okay? What I'm saying is religion is a placeholder or a acronym for a pseudonym, a misnomer, okay, a renaming of their hope. It's a place to put the hope in a pocket which is socially acceptable. So they can put their delusions in a pocket that's socially acceptable and call it religion, but it's really just angel theory or somebody's looking after me theory or some other kind of delusional I'll be okay bullshit.
And I'm saying it's entirely possible to consent to one's entire decade upon decade upon decade of risk exposure with full knowledge of what that entails, the worst of the worst, without being glued to any hope and without even feeling the need to have any hope for something better. So hope for what exactly? Hope for higher pay raise, hope for a better overall society to live in. I mean, people don't think of that from that point of view. They just take it one day at a time, and if they don't feel excessively burdened by anything, then the hope is not even going to have to come into effect.
Well, I'm saying that it's there, and it's in the form of basically a social addiction, a culturally created and manifested addiction to not being a loser. These expectations that are not necessarily, like I said, have anything to do with being realistic. They just have to do with wallowing in emotional babble like love or some other silly word, and that's the manifestation of it. So you want to say it doesn't exist. I'm saying no, it does exist. They are deluded. Now, the fundamental question we're arguing about, let's understand that we agree, okay, that people don't have a right to impose. So you'd say people don't have a right to procreate until they can get consent. So we agree on that subject.
Hang on. I got my phone going. I gotta call you back. Bye.
Okay. Oh, I guess he's talking to the phone.
It was the phone. It wasn't you.
Yeah, I understand.
don't have a right to. Rights are a societal construct, so let's not phrase it that way. People ought not to assume that, seeing as how there is a familial tie, because that's the number one reason why people think that by procreating, they are not. They're still somehow minding their own business if they're procreating. See, for me, antinatalism, first and foremost, is about minding your own business. And the reason most people think that it's not is because of the familial factor, right? So if I am bossing a family member around for 18 years, for 21 years, then somehow I'm not bossing a different individual around. I am bossing my own kin. So there's this sort of kinship that's built in to natalism. Now, I'm saying that is the fundamental flaw. It doesn't necessarily mean that people don't have a right, because rights are an entirely cultural, societal construct. And right now, they do have a right. That is a factual statement. People have reproductive rights. So for us to change that, we're going to have to get that written into the law.
Well,
if we're going to speak of,
well, either you're opposed to that or you're not opposed to that. That's the question. Okay, I thought we had settled that part of the argument. So you're still uncertain whether you think people should have the right. I'm saying it's nothing more than rape. Okay, it's self-indulgent taking of somebody else's risk. Okay, it could be possible you could go out and rape a woman and she'd say, "Thank you very much, anti-bullshit man. That was a lot of fun." Okay, that is a possibility. And the fact that that's a possibility doesn't make rape okay. All right? And even if, nine times out of 10, the woman said, "Thank you very much, anti-bullshit man, that was incredibly fun," that wouldn't make it okay. It'd still be a crime. You'd still go to jail for it. I'm saying natalism is in the same category. I don't care how many times it works. My only concern is the fact that sometimes it doesn't work, and it doesn't work is dumped on an individual that never gave consent to be your fucking play toy.
Yeah, I've said as much in many of the sections of the blog post, that even if it just had been one victim who had not consented to the, let's call it an imposition for the sake of the argument, that would be enough for, let's say, even if it were hundreds of thousands of people who were fully content with their arrangement. So the one victim should not be made into a sacrificial lamb for the benefit of the many.
Right? But should and ought are tricky words. I'm trying to get it down to more absolute terms. Do we agree, okay, that the only way this idea of people having, the only way I'm going to respect other people's liberty is when I have a guarantee that they're going to respect the liberty of the rape victim. So until I have concession that all these people, I have to respect their opinion that their life is really kick-ass, unless I have the written document, the contract that says I will not rape women, all right, I'm not letting these fuckers loose. That's my argument to you. So if we can agree that they don't have a right to have kids, that I have a right to stop them from having kids, then I'll say, yes, they have a right to torture themselves forever. But I'm not giving them the right to torture themselves forever if I have to also give them the right to commit rape. Fuck that.
Yeah, well, to stop them, my only concern would be to stop them at what cost? You're going to say that to stop them, even if it takes World War III, let's do it. Because short-term pain for long-term gain. And I'm going to say, no, it's going to be short-term pain, but it's going to be pain of such a magnitude that it's not going to compensate for any notion of a long-term gain. And even if it did, why should these specific people who have to go to that war, who have to participate in that war at this very moment, you're basically making them the sacrificial lambs.
Well, I'm saying that, I'm saying it would have been a huge benefit if we annihilated the human race in World War I. That would have kicked ass. So if we would have killed another 50 million people in World War I, we'd still be in the plus because we avoided World War II. So you can argue to me that there's some catastrophe I could create in the next year on planet Earth that somehow would make it impossible to see any logic in it. And I'm saying, no, there's no way. I mean, what the human race is at right now, 7 billion people heading for 9 billion soon. You know, they're train wrecking, they're brick walling right now. What the hell they're heading for is so much worse than any fucking hell I could make tomorrow. I could Fukushima this planet in a million different ways, and I wouldn't make the hell as bad as what they're looking at 100 years from now.
If human race had done itself in World War I, you would have had all the animals left behind with no one. Well,
we're taking animals out of the equation right at the moment. I'm just saying, obviously, we both agree that whoever cleans up the mess the rest of the way, right? The last survivors take care of nuking it from space or whatever, killing off the replicating gene molecule. So that's part of the bargain.
Well, wouldn't it make more sense to start this argument off by arguing for animal extinction first and foremost? Because animals cannot consent to their lifetime of risk exposure.
Well, obviously you can't do that because we're part of the biosphere. So obviously people are going to start panicking when you say, let's annihilate wheat. Let's annihilate all genetic substance on Earth. I mean, I'm just saying the biosphere is essential to our existence. And so once you start fiddling with that and making it go extinct.
It's been fiddled with. 99.9% of all species that have ever roamed the Earth are presently extinct.
I understand, but never at one moment are 99% of the things living on Earth made extinct, except in a huge extinction, which means that the environment is hugely altered, which means that the human beings will not have a comfortable transition to the new world. I'm just saying, as soon as you start messing with the biosphere, exterminating the biosphere, I'm just saying I would object to that. I'd say that's the wrong way to go. Get rid of the intelligent organisms first and then work your way down. All right, you use the nukes. Use the nukes on the crabs and the lobsters. Don't use the nukes on the more elegant animals.
Yeah, no, but I don't believe animals are a means to our ends. So even if it were to make human existence more uncomfortable, or dare I say, non-trivial harm-wise uncomfortable, I would still say that that's a overall good from a utilitarian standpoint, seeing as how the majority of suffering that takes place on planet Earth is wildlife suffering.
I understood, but I'm still going to argue that you might as well start at the top and work your way down rather than start at the bottom and work your way up. So I'm just saying there's no point in making a fragile biosphere even more fragile and more dangerous to the sentient organisms living in it. So I don't want to kill animals in brush fires and all this other kind of crap. I want to do it like humanely, and I just think humanely means in a systematic, ordered manner. And obviously there's no point, we're not going to do that until we've agreed that we're not going to exist here. I mean, if we're not going to concede we're not going to exist, we can't kill the biosphere. That's not going to make any sense.
Well, if human beings want to stick around post mass extinction of the overwhelming majority of species on planet Earth, that is, again, them consenting to their lifetime of risk exposure.
Well, I'm just saying, I just don't see that as realistic, okay? People aren't going to sit there and concede to degrading the environment while they're still alive. I just don't see any point in doing it that way. You get rid of the thing that's creating your environment. You burn the house down after you're done living in it. You don't burn it down while you're living in it.
Well, I would take issue with burn the house down having anything to do with mass extinction of the majority, or let's just say have it extinct enough. So let's say not kill off, but sterilize 95% of wildlife.
I just don't know whether, like I said, we don't know what the environmental impact of such actions are in terms of all kinds of viruses and all kinds of different things that you might set loose because of this messing with the balance. I'm just saying, why would I mess with the structure of the house until I have to? There's no point in burning the house down till I'm on my deathbed. Then start burning it down. But don't burn it down while I'm still trying to live in it.
Well, speaking of animals, have you found or have you even looked for a suitable cause or shelter for me to donate some money to in exchange for you hopefully changing your screen name to a name of my choosing? Because you said you were going to look for some stuff that you're comfortable with, and I'm just wondering if you had any time to look for that.
Yeah, well, I don't think the odds are you're not going to find it, but yeah, I'll donate if you have to donate to somebody else by my benefit, like somehow I'm supposed to see that in my interest, that I'm supposed to give money to some cause, that, yeah, why wouldn't I give it to my own cause? But anyway, regardless of that, okay, yeah, I mean, people paying, drug addicts not to have kids might be, if that charity still exists, that might be the one to go with. But I think that's a Band-Aid solution. So, yeah, it's better than throwing the money in a garbage can, but I don't know how much better it is.
Well, just send me a link to some charity, some shelter, something that we can have a hands-on change for an effect with your psychology paying the price, in the sense that you would have to change something about your YouTube channel or just some little ego bullshit.
Well, I guess why don't you just pay me directly? Why don't you just pay me directly? Why pay me through some sort of charity which with I have wishy-washy or lukewarm support of?
No, well, that can work too. I'm willing to knock down the stipulation for the video exile challenge. I'll knock that down from 6 months to 3 months. How about that?
Yeah, well, I made a video on this subject. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, I've paid, okay, hundreds of dollars to get online. Thousands of dollars? Yeah, in real money, thousands of dollars. So, you know, you're offering me $1,000 to shut up. Well, okay, that's not much.
Just to prove, not because I need you to shut up somehow, but just to prove that you don't need this. It's not an addiction of yours. I mean, when I challenged you about it being an addiction, you said, no, it's not. So why don't you just put your mouth where your money is?
Well, I mean, what's the definition of an addiction? I'm addicted to the cause of fucking fixing things that I consider to be broken. And I think this medium has the potential to do something. Now, yeah, taking some time off, I could work on writing stuff, and I could work on maybe the website and technology issues. So, yes, not being distracted by making daily videos probably will free up some time for me to do other things. But I'm just saying we're still at the bottom line where, at the current moment, I'm obviously find this more comfortable. But it might just be because I'm lazy. So this is easier than doing harder work. But you know, so you want to tell me where the line between addiction and where the line between this is my productive, this is what I see as being productive. I mean, I don't know what that line is. But I don't see the point of proving it for $1,000 is all I'm saying. $1,000 isn't going to fix any of my problems.
Okay, so I guess that's a no then. But
well, for now, no. I mean, it's not a no.
But you would have taken it if it had been a month challenge. You were all for it then, but 3 months is too much. So.
Yeah, well, right? I'm just saying, it's how much you're going to get paid per month. Yeah, well, $1,000 a month is pretty good. So, yeah, if I can get people to pay me $1,000 a month not to be online, well, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, I like that.
Well, it's just funny. You're sacrificing this high-minded agenda for $1,000 a month. I thought it was all about the agenda, but see, you're willing to drop it like
I just explained the agenda. I just explained how maybe it would even be better for me because the agenda might do with the benefit of me working on other things. It's not like I'm going to go on vacation for. Do you think I'm not going to be caring about this shit or I'm not going to work on this shit? Of course I'm going to be working on this shit. You're just saying don't make videos. Okay, I won't make videos. That means I'll do something else, or I'll make videos. Okay, and I won't publish them until my hiatus is over.
Okay, so you're willing to work on a side project for a month, but not for 3 months. Okay, your standards, whatever. Let's move on. I want to talk to you about, because one of the things I referenced just briefly in the blog was the, quote, we're not on a rescue mission statement that you keep bringing up. And the point of that was, if we had been on a rescue mission, then your spiel over how, quote, an imposition is an imposition only if what's being imposed is irrational, okay, then this would lead to a dismissal of procreation being an imposition. Because if we actually had been on a rescue mission, and if we didn't have the technology necessary to reach some external life beyond planet Earth, if we didn't have that technology at this very moment, but we were working on this technology, but we needed to create the next generation to complete this technology and to therefore venture out into whatever other planet harbored life to save this life from itself. Then, according to an imposition is only an imposition if what's being imposed is irrational, well then procreation wouldn't be an imposition.
Exactly. I've said it pretty clearly that yes, if I can rape one woman to prevent 100 rapes, I'm raping the one woman. It's just fucking sensible. It's just logical. So I can't get around the absolute net fact, okay, that if these other 100 rapes are inevitable, and the only way they can be stopped is committing one rape over here, and I personally have to commit it instead of some rapist, Well, the obligation seems pretty obvious that you can't, that's a rescue mission. I'm on a rescue mission, and I'm going to run over one woman to save 100 women burning to death. So, yeah,
Let's
I'm
say
saying
that
it's worth running over the one to save the 100. So it's a rescue mission.
Well, let's say the sentient life that exists beyond planet Earth, let's say that there has never been a single person who has ever conceived of the thought that they'd rather not have been born. Now, you're sacrificing people on planet Earth to build technology to be able to reach this other planet, and many of these people on planet Earth, will actually regret having been born in order to save whatever extraterrestrials, because they do suffer, but even though they suffer, they don't suffer enough to the point where they can even think of themselves as life victims, victims of procreation. So you're willing to sacrifice people who regret having been born to save, in the interest of the net effect, extraterrestrials who don't think like us in that way and who are content with their own life, just because
that's your interpretation, but I don't see that at all. I'm saving the miserable people that will live in horrible conditions. That's right, and I'm saving the deluded, the ignorant, deluded religious kooks who are all, not recognizing their real life, okay, not recognizing reality, living in a delusion, living in just the words, I am successful, I am winning, and I'm saying that they're only winning in their own delusion. They're not winning in any kind of real understanding. So if I gave them, if I prove to them the fact that there is no hope, that there is no angels, there's no gods, there's no spirituality, there's no singularity, if I could prove those facts, they would get incredibly depressed and concede their life was shit. They would. Okay, and it's only their delusions and hope that keep them in the game. But regardless, even without them, I'm still saying I'm on the rescue mission for the animals anyway. So as you pointed out before, 99.99% of the suffering is in animals. So I'm saving the animals anyway. I don't give a fuck what the humans are thinking anyway. I don't give a fuck what humans think. All I care about is ending this stupid parasite growing on the surface of Earth.
I have to break this intuition that you have, that most people are pro-life only because they believe in these concrete, happy things. And if you had shattered this view that they have about happy endings, this and that they will suddenly think that their existence shouldn't have happened. And this is so contrary to so many people that I have spoken with firsthand on this subject. And I've pointed this out to you before, and yet you keep going back to words like delusion, hope, optimism.
What is a sports fan?
It simply does not reflect their psychology.
Well, I don't care. What is a sports fan? Is a sports fan deluded or not?
A sports fan has, from my dealings with them, a sports fan has a juvenile psychology. But they don't necessarily have to reject any concrete fact to be a sports fan.
Well, I'm not saying they're rejecting a concrete fact. What I'm saying is that they're creating concrete facts. They're creating this concrete fact that somehow it matters who wins this gold medal, and that somehow it's worth it to create 1,000 losers so they can have their one winner. Okay, they don't understand the economics. They don't understand the blood on the fucking table. They think it's a harmless surgery, so to speak, and they have no realization that to create that medicine, to create that aspirin, they tortured 1 billion rats. I mean, if I could put all the animals that were tortured for a given cure for a disease, if I could put them all on a table somewhere and people could see them, you don't think that would change their perception if I showed them all the corpses of the chimpanzees and all the corpses of the little rats that were tortured for their therapy, and I showed them film of them tortured? You don't think that would change their perception?
I think it absolutely would. But again, a second ago we were talking about sports, and you were talking about the losers in the context of a sporting event.
I'm talking about addictive psychology.
Sorry, which entails voluntary participation, which does not count if you're dealing with rats running experiments.
It counts. So I'm talking about humans' perception. I'm saying there's human perceptions that are made of absolute crap. All right? And so it has no integrity as a perception. And so I'm saying people's perception of their life as winning is a silly, delusional psychology, and it only exists because they are not taking account for the horrible cost of their existence. The fact that the elephant man and the elephant woman will exist because of their silly life. They're not understanding the context. They're denying the real cost of it, and that's why they're optimistic, is because they have a delusional, cotton candy perception of the reality.
And I'm telling you that most people do not think of their own life under this winning-losing binary.
And that's part of their ignorance. Exactly. So exactly, they are so stupid, so delusional that they can't even figure out that they're in a value game where they're exchanging value, where there's a price paid for their gameplay.
So again, the criteria for winning is basically existing in virtual reality. According to me, criteria for winning is having your existence not impact any domino effect chain, wherein there is a non-consensual, non-trivial, and unjust suffering event. Those three combined, or hell, even one of those three, right? So
and even in a virtual reality, you could still be a delusional participant. So, I mean, I'm not even willing to concede that even if I put a crazy person in virtual reality, that and he can only harm himself, that is in fact ethical either. Okay, leaving crazy people in delusional virtual reality would not necessarily be an ethical thing to do either.
Yeah, because you are in the business of saving people from themselves.
I'm in the business of defining value and applying logic. I mean,
and I'm in the business of saving people who want to be saved.
Well, again, I'm not. Do we expect homeless people to say, "Please save me from the streets"? Do we expect them to say, "Please save me"?
They do that every time they panhandle, pretty much.
No, well, I don't think they do that. They take the money and go to the liquor store. We're not fixing them. We're helping them. Okay, we're just feeding their addiction. We're just giving another fix, another daily fix. That isn't fixing them. That isn't helping them. That isn't doing them any good. If we really gave a shit, that's not how we would treat them. We wouldn't just sit there and say, "Here's some booze money."
Yeah, but your question was, do we expect homeless people to ask for a home, in a sense? That's what your question was. And I'm just saying they do it implicitly whenever they have their handouts. That can be taken as being synonymous with give me shelter, give me food. So they do ask for help, whereas the majority of humans, when you ask them, do you regret having been born? And again, it's nothing to do with notions of hope or notions of God or notions of sportsmanship, winning versus losing. It just has to do with what they have ended up believing due to a cause and effect chain that they have been brought up in.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's true. I don't think that, panhandling doesn't have much to do with the fact that we're going to dry you out or we're going to give you drug rehab. So they don't voluntarily agree to the real solution to the problem. They just want the heroin, okay? They don't want the solution. So we're back to this argument about whether we're talking about fixing a problem or whether we're talking about putting a Band-Aid on a problem. I say fix the problem is the only rational course of action. It's the only way to spend the money is on the cure, not on the treatment.
And the cure is a political solution.
Well, I'm saying the cure is, obviously, for antinatalists, the cure is to stop playing the life game for an ephalist. And, yeah, so that's the cure. There's no way to fix it, so don't bother fixing it. Just annihilate it in a graceful as possible manner. Do the graceful exit thing. Concede the thing is broken from the bottom up. There will never be fairness. There will never be consent. So screw it.
Well, there is consent right now with adults. If we're going to start measuring right now, we have to take into account that
there's no consent. I'm sorry. I did not consent. I did not fucking consent.
What was that?
I did not fucking consent. It's idiotic to say there is consent.
Well, there is for some people.
There's no consent. I'm sorry. There's no consent. Nobody asked a goddamn baby, you will be born in Biafra. You will be programmed to be a Muslim kook. No kid is given that option.
I restricted it to adults. Gary, you cannot tell me.
An adult is a byproduct of its fucking environment. You cannot separate the goddamn imposing on a baby from what the adult turns out to be. Adults are made by their fucking creation circumstance.
Are you or are you not consenting to continue living?
No, I'm not consenting. No, I didn't consent to any of it. Now I'm stuck because I have to be a janitor, okay? By ethical rules, I'm obligated to fight in the war. All right, I've been made by this fucking lunacy that's all around me. I have no other fucking logical choice but to realize I can't win unless I fight this war. There's no winning except on the battlefield. Running away, retreating is failure. That's your
consent to live.
You're the cunt fucking Tranquil, that asshole that you somehow have respect for. That weasel thinks he wins the war by running away.
All right, well, I've said my piece. Next on the agenda, I'll let you go for one of your notes.
Yeah, well, my notes are we're still at the same argument, okay? Is where do we draw the line between if the absolute math says, okay, this is, if you spend the money here, you will get a cure, you will solve the problem, and it looks like as straight and as direct a line as there is. If you see that logically, and nobody can make a counter argument even indicating the slightest bit of doubt of the truth, all they can say is hope, hope, God, God, spirit, spirit.
Well, when you say, well, what specifically are you talking about right now?
Well, I'm just talking about this idea of an absolute truth, the idea that you tend to seem to not like, this idea of net math that says, yeah, a little bit of short-term pain now, huge long-term gain. So yeah, let's get to the solution, even if we have to spill some blood. So what? Because the amount of blood that will be preventing being spilled is huge. So yeah, why not?
Again, but see, it's going to be circular again because you want to end humanity first and then take care of animals, where I'm saying World War III is not a little bit of blood spillage. And that's what you're advocating. You're advocating for World War III.
Well, compared to what? Compared to what? The historical truths? Compared to the number of people who die every day without the benefit of morphine? You know, what do you know, who cares about the war, blood spillage? The nature's going to spill your blood anyway. Nature's going to kill you. The argument is how badly are you going to die?
So what specific policy do you want to have on the line when we're dealing with this war that you want to advocate for? Well,
I'm not advocating for a war, again, so I'm just saying...
Well, you just said it.
Well, I know, but I was using it as a metaphor. The point is that you go all the way, okay? You step on some personal rights to procreate. You step on some personal rights to maintain the game. You say, yeah, you want to live your life? Go ahead and live your life. We're not saying anything, but you're not going to procreate. You're not going to defend the system, and you're going to pay taxes to pay for this elimination of the animal game. So once you're dead, you're going to pay to a system that's going to take care of business and clean this mess up. So yeah, that would be the war. And obviously there's going to be, there'd be people who, the Muslims aren't going to go along with it. They're not going to say, oh, you're right, Mohammed doesn't exist, our fairy tales are bullshit, and we'll stop replicating. They're not going to agree to it, so we know we're going to have to put sanctions on them, and we're going to have to, nail them to the wall in terms of saying, you can't keep overpopulating the planet, you dumb cunts. So there's going to be a war. There's going to be one anyway over these issues, just as a pragmatic war, because guess what? The world doesn't have enough resources. So people are going to start killing each other over resources.
Well, the first step, I suppose, is always going to go back to entitlements, and that's when we got into orphanages, which I thought we met halfway. There was sort of a meeting of the minds there. As you let it up, you have the kid decide what the kid wants to do. If the kid wants to escape poverty and go to Disneyland orphanages, that's the kid's call. Now, when you went back to discussing orphanages in Tiny Chat over the last couple of weeks, you didn't mention anything about having the kid make the choice. And this was after our last call, where I thought this was going to be the main theme, is that you leave it up to the kid. And I think the reason you didn't mention that in the tiny chat is because a lot of kids would still rather opt for poverty than opt to be
I don't have any problem with that. I'm sorry that you think there was some reason why I didn't say that. I don't see why I would have it any other way. I mean, what's the point of making the orphanages if you're not going to let kids in? So, of course, I'd let all the kids choose not to exist with assholes as parents. So, yeah. So that was a given of the argument. So I don't know where you're saying I'm evading that. I'm not evading that. I'd like to paint a big giant banner that says, yeah, kids should have a goddamn choice because most of the parents are dumber than their kids anyway.
No, but of course, when you talk about taking entitlements away and still say we're not going to make the kid pay, but the kid wants to stay at home with mom and dad, where does that point to but the parents not having enough to subsidize their kid? So the kid has to be...
Well, they still have to. You still have to.
Parents have to have enough money to feed, educate,
exactly.
Maintain the kids.
So,
so
yeah.
Entitlements would not be removed.
Well, they can still be removed. I mean, it's the parents' obligations to get a job and pay the bills. If they can't get a job and pay the bills, they're not entitled. So, yeah, there's nothing that changes the fact that theirs is their responsibility, okay? It's not a parent's right to take my money to pay for their kid. No, it's their right to earn their own money, put it in a savings account for their kid's welfare. And if they're not willing to do that, they don't get to keep the kid. So, yeah, I'm still going to have a line that says I'm still saying you still have to take care of your kid. That's right. Yeah, that's right. There's no free fucking lunch on planet Earth. It's idiotic for some crack whore to say I can pop out babies and you're going to pay me to raise them. Fuck her, okay? Fuck her attitude. Get a job, bitch, okay? Fuck you. That's my attitude towards it. These people are doing it deliberately. They're whoring the system. They're using their kids as a source of income.
So, the bitch doesn't get a job. The kid wants to stay with the bitch. What, does the kid starve, or do you take the kid? No, you take
the kid away. That's right. That's why you build the good orphanages. You wouldn't have the right to take the kid away. You don't have a right to... You don't have a right to take the kid away if you don't have a super orphanage. So I'm not saying take the kid away and shove him in a dirt bag. I'm saying take the kid away and teach him how to be an elegant, civilized human fucking being instead of a crack whore's kid.
Okay, but the kid wants to stay with the mother.
Too fucking bad. If the mother can't pay her bills, I'm not going to let the kid be raised in the street.
So we didn't have a meeting of the minds then?
Well, how the fuck am I going to meet on the minds? I should pay welfare whores to have kids. I'm saying I'm not going to pay welfare whores to have kids. So they either get a job or they live on the street. They can't raise their kid on the street, so the kid has to go to the orphanage. That's the choice. The kid wants to be mad about that. He should be mad at his bitch mother, okay, for not willing to get a job for him. She's not willing to be a civilized human being and live like a civilized human being. She wants to feed her kid garbage out of garbage cans, then fuck her. Okay? Yeah, that's...
The kid is 6, so the kid is going to experience... The kid can't understand these concepts about being mad at the mother for the mother being unemployed. So the kid's not going to understand why he or she is being removed from the home.
I'll explain it to the kid. I'll make the 3-minute video it takes to explain it to the kid. This is reality, okay? I'll show the kid some pictures. I'll show the kid I'll show a kid a picture of a baby lion cub getting killed by a hyena. And I'll explain to the kid this is the real world. Okay? And when people act irresponsibly, they put little cubs in danger. Your mother puts you in danger. Okay? And we're going to do the best we can to get you educated, to be a decent human being, to love other people, to care for other people, to respect other people. Your crack whore mother couldn't give a rat's ass if you got eaten by hyenas. She doesn't give a fuck if you eat out of a garbage can, because she's a crack whore using bitch.
I'd like to believe that this would work and that this would get the kid to pretty much forget the parent. But I just don't think this will be the case. So I would not want to sacrifice the kid and put the kid...
I don't think I'm going to sacrifice it. Okay. We'll concede we disagree on that subject, okay? I can live with that. All right? You don't want to take kids away from crack whores. I do.
Next?
Yeah, well, I'll keep going back to my argument, which is this absolute argument. What comes first? some ethical duty to delusional people or an ethical duty to understanding that this is the basic economics you're stuck with. You want to save the 100 lion cubs, you got to run over 2 lion cubs.
No, it depends. It depends on a lot of other factors. I've given you a bunch of scenarios. In the blog. I keep going back to the fact of getting this horrible feedback. I have to keep shuffling my cocktail. Yeah, no, I'm not going to save a single... I'm not going to sacrifice a single person who regrets having been born to save 100 people who are content. And there's no argument against that that's going to be swayable for me. So this is pretty damn circular.
Well, how so? So we agree on that, though. Then you're saying you're not going to create a Frankenstein to justify...
No, I'm saying if I have to sacrifice one person who regrets their birth to save in the context of value economics, to save more individuals who don't regret having been born from suffering, no, I'm never going to do that.
Well, again, but that's never your absolute math. The net equation, again, is this is the... we've got a disease. The question is, do you buy Band-Aids? Do you buy antibacterial ointment? Or do you cure the disease? So it's the cure obviously has no short-term benefits. Okay, it only has long-term benefits. All right.
Yeah, well, I made my stance pretty clear. I'm a provisional extinctionist. I'm not an unconditional extinctionist. I can imagine dozens of scenarios where the only people who suffer are individuals who consent to their lifetime risk exposure. So that's pretty straightforward. I don't see what other detail you're looking for from me.
Well, I'm just trying to get to the point that there's the first priority or the first value is the net equation value, all right, and ethical questions about what rights are being violated is moot in the context of that absolute math.
If we start from the premise of negative utilitarianism, I am a negative utilitarian with respects to wildlife and comatose humans, but I am a preference utilitarian when it comes to sound-minded adults. So I keep making a category distinction there, and I would like to honor that category.
I know, but I keep, so I make my category distinction is, which I will fully concede to your position if you give me a contract guaranteeing the fact that the assholes we let loose to live out their fantasy life aren't going to procreate. But as soon as I have that threat, I'm saying game over.
Yeah, but see, as long as they don't procreate, so of course, that's taken into account. But you do break the negative utilitarian code because according to negative utilitarianism, you should want to immediately discontinue.
Right, I know, but the argument is it's a minor concession, right? So you're talking about 0.0000001% of the suffering will be in this delusional form. So obviously, I'll give away fixing that tiny percentage of the problem if I can cure 99% of the disease. Okay, I'm going to grab my chance to cure 99% of the disease. So if I leave a little residual echo, that's okay. I'm not going to concede that it wouldn't be worth squishing them too, but I'm just saying, yeah, I'll concede that. I'll give that away.
This has been mostly a rehash. I'm sorry to say, it's been mostly a rehash. My heart's not even in it.
Okay.
You're willing to concede it just out of pragmatism, but you're not really... You don't think there's anything ethical about it in any sort of fundamental way about honoring the preferences of an individual who will only harm the agent himself. So
yeah, of course I don't. I look, you're not conceding my point. I don't think they're doing that because they're smart or their philosophy has any integrity. I think they're doing it because they're fucking insanely stupid, insanely ignorant. All right, so yeah, why would I say it's okay to rape a woman if she's comatose? It's okay to rape a woman if she's drunk. I'm not going to say it's okay to rape her if she's drunk and she doesn't know she's being raped. She thinks her boyfriend is fucking her, but you're fucking her. Okay, should I say that's okay? No.
I don't even know where to begin with the distinction. Again, it is an implication involving a rape victim. So you have deviated from what I went on about a second ago. The individual will only harm the individual. You invoked a rape victim, so you're invoking
right. A crazy person only harms themselves, right? So there's a crazy person only harming himself. You're saying I shouldn't care.
No, not a crazy, a sound-minded individual.
I just said there is no. No. You keep saying a sound-minded. I'm saying they're delusional.
I'm saying for you to say something is a delusion, you have to give me a concrete fact that's being denied.
Yeah, the concrete fact being denied is evolution and the price of their existence, the context of reality. They have completely denied reality. They're accepting no fact of reality when it comes to their psychology, their addictions, their silliness, their foolhardiness, their fucking optimism bias. They're conceding nothing real, and they're living in a fantasy world that's probably defined by angels and spirit and hope and art and creativity and some other silly fucking love word. They're full of crap, they're idiots and delusional nuts. Just like a baseball fan.
Yeah, no, I just don't see that with the individuals I discuss this subject matter with. So
well, you have more respect for human beings. I don't. I think the average human being is a fucking idiot.
Well, they're an idiot, but they don't have to be deluded to be an idiot.
Well, same difference. Same difference. Same difference. Well, I'm just saying, no. Delusion and idiot are the same thing.
No, idiocy is intellectual sloppiness. Delusion is, I mean, we can get into the clinical analysis of delusions, but I'd rather not do that now. But no, you can't tell me that this is somehow just all part of the same fucking bag of tricks.
It's a lack of accurate knowledge of reality. That's what it is, okay? It's a lack of accurate knowledge of reality, and that's the only reason why they think it matters. They don't understand the reality of the fact that they're being gamed by their ego and by bullshit, okay? So I can explain why sports is not cost-effective and not humanly productive. I can explain why it's the biggest, stupidest waste of human fucking energy ever. And I can, I think, demonstrate that only an asshole or idiot would say this is a good thing to addict people to.
You can say it's unwise, but you cannot intermingle a lack of wisdom with delusion.
I think I can, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. You want to keep the words separate? Fine. You want to say the delusion comes from some sort of chemical imbalance or something? Fine. I don't care what you blame it on, whether you blame it on a lack of knowledge, ignorance, or hyperthyroidism. I really just don't care. The bottom line to me is their understanding of the context and reality of their existence is not accurate.
So why does a guy like Dawkins, who is far more versed in all these subjects than you are, why does he not read his? I mean, are you saying that you actually understand the selfish gene better than Dawkins?
Well, I don't think. Well, when Dawkins wrote the book, I mean, it was a very bold statement to make. But obviously, by current standards, it's not so bold. But obviously, Dawkins has a huge. He has some huge vacuum holes in his brain. All right, and this is a guy who needed to have Peter Singer explained vegetarianism to him. I mean, Dawkins was like, oh, you mean animals feel, and maybe we would have an obligation not to harm them. Gee, I never thought of that. So, I mean, that is kind of hilarious, right?
So again, if we're talking about fact denial, Dawkins doesn't deny any of these facts. A lot of scientists don't deny any of these facts. Their understanding of these issues, they have a far greater grasp of the clinical aspects of all of this than most of the people on YouTube combined, both your supporters and both your antagonists.
And we can see the huge, again, we can see the huge.
It's not about the information.
Yes, it is. We can see, Dawkins lacks one fundamental, three fundamental understandings. He lacks any concept of value being a fact, so that's a huge omission. He thinks, okay, that the human creativity is, oh, well, we can look at a flower, and a flower is so beautiful because we can see the little cells, and they're green, and they're sparkly. And so he is falling for the glitter, falling for the bullshit. He's an egomaniacal son of a bitch, if, you know, from what I've heard of him in person, okay, is that he's really ego-driven, okay? He's so fucking got a full of himself stick up his ass, all right? So, yeah, that's Dawkins' failure. So I'm saying Dawkins isn't exactly Jack Kevorkian when it comes to either humility or, in my opinion, intellect.
Yeah, so we know there's a lot of people who deny all the facts that Dawkins accepts, who are not egotistical. So obviously there is no correlation nor causation when it comes to accepting facts of reality and being a humble person or being an egotistical person. Obviously there is something else here, and you keep trying to make it all interrelated.
No. Look, it's just an ingredient thing, okay? It doesn't matter what exactly, whether it's wheat flour or corn flour. It doesn't matter whether it's water or milk you add to it, okay? But the point is you do have to have the flour, and you do have to have a liquid, and you do have to have, let's say, a sweetener. All right, so there's 3 types of things you have to have in terms of your human character to be able to get the truth. All right, so yeah, having the facts won't do you any good if you have no emotional character. If you just are emotionally so fucking nihilistic or nihilistic or Nietzscheistic that you can't possibly see anything else in the universe mattering except you. So if you can't get past you, okay, psychologically, then yeah, you're not going to be able to put the 2 plus 2 together that, oh, the other feeling things matter. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, and I'm saying Dawkins has that. That's missing from Dawkins. Dawkins, like the amazing atheist, sees the rest of humanity as ants there to entertain him, applaud for him, tell him how big his brain is, rub his brain. Ooh.
He has a few lapses in judgment where he flippantly dismisses something, or just in between interviews, first-hand account things. But you've just basically said that Dawkins is a sociopath. That's what you've just said. Just realize that. Now, can you back this up with an actual sociopathic statement that he has made? Not rude statements here and there, which I agree he has done. He has uttered. I'm
saying, I can deconstruct his life, and I will show you how, yes, he does not have a developed sense of empathy because he does not recognize the feeling character of the other beasties in the universe. So he would look at the elephant man, he would go, my, isn't that an interesting manifestation of genetic failure? But he would not say, oh my God, I would hate to be, you know, having puke fly out of my ears like that.
That's a caricature of Dawkins. He does not openly weep, obviously, because he's in an academic setting, so he's not going to go on and on about the suffering the way you would want to. But it doesn't mean he's not able to comprehend that suffering is bad. And I can send you dozens of quotes from Dawkins discussing suffering. He just doesn't happen to do it on a routine basis the way you do it. And I've noticed you do this with people. You do this. If somebody doesn't discuss suffering on a routine basis, you assume that they are cowards.
Well, I'm just saying, I've watched plenty of Dawkins, all right? And I'm saying every opportunity he gets to glorify the watchmaker of evolution, he will do that. He thinks, he's like Nietzsche, he thinks it's worth 1,000 or 1,000,000 failures to have one magnificent mutant change that creates the next wave of evolution. So he's a big asshole when it comes to these subjects, and I'm just saying he's a go-alonger. He's a social go-alonger. He's a politician in a lot of ways. Look at how he backslid on the title of his fucking book, all right? Because some to-be-seriouses in the world whine and cry, don't put selfishness in the title, it makes genetics sound mean. And then he sits there and tries to recontextualize and say, I didn't mean selfishness. Altruism still could be a parasitical desire. Yeah, you could still parasitically want to be altruistic. I mean, it's hilarious.
Well, that's, I mean, obviously there's a difference between an action that is selfish and an action that has a component of self-interest to it, but it's still...
I'm just talking about Dawkins' fact that Dawkins would rewrite the title of his book to placate common ignorant reactions, that he didn't just tell people, fuck you, the title was brilliant. He sat there and placated their bullshit and tried to connive. Well, I'm not saying altruism isn't genetically possible in groups. I'm just, among group members or among family member. He just
Well, no,
broke
I'm
the
saying
word.
It is. I'm saying I agree that it is possible because there's a difference between actions which are entirely selfish and actions that happen to have a small component of self-interest to them, but that are predominantly motivated by an interest in helping others. So obviously, altruism is not some
But then you're
fabrication.
not talking about the selfish gene, you're talking about the selfish meme. Okay, so that's where he's violating his own book. His own book invented the idea of memes, and it's memes are the only thing you can get altruism out of. You can't get altruism out of the biology because the biology will always be rewarding you for being stoic, or reward you psychologically for being a good person, or reward you in some other ego way for doing the right thing. So if you're getting rewarded for something, that's called selfish.
Well, I'm going to say altruism predates cultures, predates memes, and I can send you some text that verifies that if you're interested in
Yeah, well, go
this stuff.
ahead, but I'll dissect it. But yeah, I just think that's idiotic to say that altruism in any kind of rational definition of the words. Now we're back to definitions of words again. Does altruism mean that the end product of the act is unselfish, or does it mean that the person committing the act did something deliberately hurtful to themselves or sacrificial to themselves for somebody else without gaining some ego benefit? Obviously, when I love somebody, when it's my candy, I'm going to protect my candy and feel all manly about it and get a big hard dick, then I'm saying that's not exactly altruism. If I'm getting off on it, it's not altruism.
Yeah, you're taking a bullet for someone, knowing that it's going to kill you. You're not going to be around to reap the rewards. What is that other than an altruistic act?
Fear of failure. Fear of failure will make you do lots of things that you don't want to do, that you know are the right thing, just because you know if you do not do it, then you're going to have to explain why you didn't do it. So if I don't jump in front of the bus...
It's a split second.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. No, yeah, well, the split-second judgments, I think, are off the table anyway, because then they're not judgments. So why call them something like altruism when you don't apply judgment? Then there's a reflex.
Well, yeah, and it is a reflex in a lot of instances.
Well, I don't really care about the reflexive instances, and I'm saying that's love then. That's an emotional response. It's not fucking goddamn altruism. If you're going to turn altruism into an emotional response, well, then it's not even, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Of course it has an element of emotion in it. How could it not?
Well, I'm just saying there's no point in it then. I'm saying, no, that's not right, because I could just rewrite the emotion as being honor. Okay? Honor makes people do things. So they've satisfied the emotion of honor. Okay, that's why the kamikaze flew into the goddamn aircraft carrier. Isn't because he was being altruistic, it's because he was doing his honorable duty.
Political indoctrination is a bit of a different animal.
Well, whether it's political or family, he was giving honor to his family and his nation, and he really saw no other choice, because if he didn't do it, he'd be a weasel.
I'll let you have the last word on that. I mean, you just always have an answer for everything, and this is very unfulfilling, to tell you the truth. It's mostly a rehash of the last two debates, and
okay, all right. This is all right. Okay. So you made your blog. I thought we could have some conversations about it. You've made 3 comments now saying, okay, you don't want to really do that. It's fine with me. Okay, fine. All right, I'm done with it. So we'll say goodbye and leave it at that.
If you have any more, I mean, I thought you had multiple.
No.
I mean, when I say, I just think we get stuck on one thing too much, and it gets a little circular. And I just thought you had multiple things.
Well, I'm saying we fundamentally agree, except you want to leave the door open to these individuals who have this delusional notion, and I'm saying, well, I don't see that as practical in the real world. I'm saying, how do I get antinatalism and how do I get ephilism completed? I'm not going to get it by leaving the door open to a bunch of people who aren't going to guarantee me they're not going to procreate. So in my opinion, there's no way I can respect people who want to play around. It's like my argument for virtual reality. As soon as you leave people in the outside, if I make virtual reality and I leave people on the outside, those people on the outside will destroy the people on the inside.
I don't know how many times I have to point out that the thought experiment of leaving people, giving them immortality pills. The moment they take the immortality pill, they will not be able to procreate.
I just said the word. I said the word practical. Okay, I don't give a fuck about your thought experiments. They have nothing to do with anything that is going to happen in my lifetime or in the foreseeable future. So what good does this do me?
Ethics in practice versus ethics in principle. I'm interested in the latter.
And I'm interested in the yes, and I'm interested in getting the job done. And like I said, I don't even, your thought experiment, I said I would concede your point, but there's no practical world that I can concede your point in. Go ahead. Yes, let people go to Mars and live on Mars, not procreating. Fine, let a zillion of them do it.
If our podium was an increasingly popular one, I would not take this angle. The fact of the matter is, we got a couple hundred people at most listening to us, so political viability and all this sort of stuff is an aside. That's why I am strictly interested in the principles of the matter, and that's why I'm not going to discuss things in practice, because you and I have no influence. So strategies and stuff like that.
Well, how do you make? I don't think you make people interested by talking in principled manner. You're talking practical matter. And I think it is something that's growing. I mean, you had that Melancholia movie. You have True Detectives. You have different instruments of public exposure to these rather negative utilitarian philosophy. It is growing. It is getting stronger. So I'm saying I can see it happening in the real world. What happens on YouTube or on blog posts? Obviously, the internet's a shithole. So yeah, it's not going to happen through this mechanism necessarily, unless this mechanism molds with some other pop culture mechanism. Yeah, we need to get on the news, or yeah, we need to get on a talking head show. So yeah, something has to happen to make it happen. I mean, Benatar's book even might have made more. It might have made more of an impact, but he didn't make any American tour. He didn't tour anywhere. He wrote a book and didn't go anywhere to talk about it.
God, you're so long-winded. I wanted to comment on like 4 things you said there, but you just keep going on and on. Mel, you brought up Melancholia. Now, that's not an anti-natalist movie. I don't know why people keep referring to it as an anti-natalist movie. It at no point tackled the subject of procreation.
At the end, it did tackle the life is shit anyway point, okay? So there was a point made, basically, that you're going to die anyway, life is stupid, blah, 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 blah.
And again, anti-natalism is not anti-life.
Yes, it is, in my opinion.
Oh, it's not. Not necessarily. That's something that people want to extrapolate.
I just say that I think an easy way to get to anti-natalism is to become aware of the fact that life is futile and stupid. So, to me, that's the way you get there.
Well, I think the best way to get there is to recognize that, do I want to be a familial autocrat? Do I want to create somebody who I'm going to have to boss around or neglect for 18 to 21 years? And the obvious answer is no. Especially seeing, unless you think somehow, unless the individual thinks that they are infallible and they're charming and their decisions are the ultimate wise decisions, then they're probably going to think that, okay, if I impose my values, my rules on somebody, that's going to create a productive adult.
Well, they don't give a fuck about creating a productive adult. They want a kid to play with. I mean, they want somebody to look up to them and say, I love you, Daddy. This doesn't have anything to do with... This doesn't have anything to do with a rational decision. It's a completely irrational...
Parenthood can be done right, and it's always a gamble, parenthood. The undertaking of parenthood.
I don't think there's any way to do it right. I don't think there's any fucking possible way of doing it right, so I think that's a misnomer too, but whatever.
I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you they don't think that. I keep hearing myself. I'm telling you they don't think that, and that's the best way you can fix them, is to pounce on that issue, as opposed to life is... Because you cannot. This all of the other experiences of the Stoics, you yourself have no affiliation. You've never done it. It's not your psychology. You've only known your psychology. That's the only one psychology you know. And you superimpose your psychology onto other people.
No, that's bullshit. Bullshit.
Therefore, you think other people letting go of the addiction is going to result in some sort of a empty, boring life. I'm telling you, no, not necessarily.
I'm saying bullshit. Okay, look, I was a meat eater. Now I'm a vegetarian. So I mean, people migrating into different psychologies, and I was a sports fan. I'm not a sports fan, so don't tell me I don't know what it is to be one of these things. I know what it is to be one of these things. The fact that I've never been irresponsible enough to say I am willing to roll the dice of having a kid that is fucking physically deformed. Yeah, well, I might have learned that because my sister was born with a deformity, so I got a first-hand exposure to the risk being taken, and I said I'd never want to take that chance. Why would I want to roll those dice? That's crazy. I saw a picture of the Elephant Man. I say, yeah, I don't want to make one of those.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the gist of my point. The gist of my point.
Well, it's the gist of the point of why people procreate. Why do people procreate? No, it's because they have no concept of risk.
No, the gist of my point is why do people not view their own lives as failures? Let's say childless people. Why do they not view their own lives as failures or as, you know, if you want to go back to your winning-losing binary, which is juvenile in my opinion, and you think it's because they're clinging to something that is fundamentally a false view of reality. And I'm telling you that that's not the case.
Well, you're telling me. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I'll give you some literature on Stoics.
Well, go ahead and give me some literature. I don't give a fuck. I'm still going to sit there and dissect their psychology and say it's all a pile of fucking shit. They're ego, horny, hungry, horny machines. Consumption, reproduction, addiction, cannibalism. All right? Anything they want because they're hungry for it. The only way they can make a goddamn justification for this shit is because they're addicted to some piece of this shit.
Not for this shit. Not for this shit. For themselves. Just themselves.
It's themselves. They're addicted to the fucking game. They think someone's going to build a statue to them. They think they're going to be somebody. They think they're going to be a billionaire. How many people on this planet think they're going to win the lottery? How many?
I'd say it's 0.8% if I had to guess. Very tiny, infantile.
Oh, so they buy the tickets thinking they're throwing their money away.
Yeah, what percentage of people buy lottery tickets?
Oh, like 90? Why do you think they raise so much money? Everybody buys them.
Oh, please. I've not met anyone who's played the lottery in the last 15 years.
Amazing. Okay, well, you explain to me then how it's the highest revenue source in this state, in most states, okay, next to income taxes, is the lottery.
Well, I guess Jersey obviously has a problem with...
Well, yeah, New York, Connecticut, Vermont. I can go to every state in the goddamn union, and the further west you go, the worse it gets.
Completely counterintuitive based on my interactions with people. I guess we just have different experiences with people. I don't see most people as suffering from this extreme optimism bias. I don't think they even need optimism, just in terms of their own life, to justify it.
It's egoism and optimism. So you take again, you have to have the ingredients for the shit pie or the delusion pie. You have to include more than one ingredient. All right, and the ingredient isn't just optimism bias. Okay, it's hunger. All right, so it's some sort of personal sense of unsatisfaction or incompletion or undoneness. They haven't fucked enough women, or they haven't done enough of this, or they haven't done enough of that, and they still got something to do, or it's just fucking outright insane fear of death. They don't want to be dead.
Okay, now I'm willing to entertain the possibility that I have underestimated just the number of people who are owned by these things. The number of people who I generally refer to as sound-minded adults who may not be as sound-minded as I assume them to be. I'm willing to entertain that. But the thing is, the crux of the issue is that even if you have one exception to the rule, so let's say it's a world of 7 billion people, one individual chooses to live out a life, has a strong conviction that their own life was worth it, and yet is not driven by any of these things. If we're gonna apply universalism to your standard of psychology, human psychology and delusion and all these things, all it takes for it to be crushed is one exception to the rule. And I've known more than one exception to the rule. So I just want you to appreciate where I'm coming from.
I know, but we're still, that's
There are many
you're just taking us back to the same argument as you complained. I'm just saying that I would concede their right to play a delusionary game if it was inconsequential, but it's not inconsequential.
Okay, no, I'm not even talking about stopping. I'm not even talking about stopping. I'm just talking about, let's just discuss the truth of the matter. Okay, the truth. There is no, I can't give you a scenario where I line up two objects, I line up an additional two objects, and I say they amount to 5 objects. Right? There's no scenario where I can give you a 2 plus 2 that equals 5. There are certainly individuals I can point you to who are not driven by any of these things that you routinely talk about, and yet they do not consider themselves to be victims.
All right. Have they considered, have they included in their perception of their own life mission statement and the value of their existence an understanding, a fair appreciation for how bad their death is going to be?
Well, if it is going to be bad, but let's say
if it is going to be bad, no, right
okay,
there.
Hang on. Let's go with the purgatory then. Let's say that there is a purgatory, and you speak to them post-death in purgatory, and they say, yeah, no, it was all worth it. Right? So all it takes is one exception. I just want you to drop the universal.
No, I'm not going to do that. There'll be people that says OJ is innocent, okay, even in purgatory. Even when you give them all the evidence, and you show them even OJ, the videotape of OJ, and you show them God's evidence of OJ doing it, and God has a tape of OJ's thoughts actually conceiving the plan to kill his wife, there'll still be some asshole who'll say, OJ's innocent. OJ's the man. OJ's the man.
And you're saying that's analogous to a Stoic saying that...
I'm saying that's analogous to a fucking guy who's got a stick way up his ass. That's right. A stick of stupidity.
I don't know what else I can say to convince you that this analogy is flawed. We're talking facts. We're talking a court case where it was beyond obvious. It was a televised courting event. And on the other hand, we're talking about an individual with an individual psychology that you cannot comprehend because you've never lived his life. You only know what it's like to be in your psychology.
Yeah, well, whatever. I'm still calling bullshit on that. I know what it is to be an addict. I know what it is to think things that were wrong. I know what it is to be delusional. I know all those things. So it's just bullshit to say I don't know the game that we're caught up in, the mechanisms of psychology. And I can sit there and say that some asshole talking out of his ass about how he lived a great life, okay, is probably talking out of his ass. Some mountain climber telling me about his fucking nirvana. About, oh yeah, I climbed Everest, man, and it was God. I touched God, man. Yeah, he's full of shit.
Not necessarily a great life, a life that had self-fulfillment and that was not regrettable when it's all said and done. If I could do it again, I would. That type of deal. Now, again, universalism, you want to apply universalism to your standard. I'm just saying one example.
That would require him to be, number one, it would require him to deny the existence of all the suffering of the biosphere for his existence. It would, I would bet he probably hurt some women in his life. I would bet he probably violated somebody's welfare in his existence. So it's a denial of all of that. It's a denial.
Let's say it's a Janus.
Well, Janus, do you think they're having a good time? I don't think a Janus is going to say, I had a great time spending my whole life worrying about stepping on a bug and inhaling a microbe. They're not going to say, I had fun. A Janus is going to say, life is stupid as fuck.
Well, what's the Janus suicide rate compared to the average
What's
Western?
The Janus birth rate?
Well, no, we got to go with the suicide rate because that's what the subject was about. Again, I'm not discussing their right to procreate. I'm discussing their right.
Right, but okay, now you're gonna argue a religion with me that basically implies that the game is a reincarnation game, and the point is that they're trying to get to nirvana. Now, whether or not Buddha's
no, hang on. Sorry, I had to bring up Jainism because you said the person abused a woman or did this or did that, so I had to invoke a Jainist for those purposes. Let's say a pacifist instead of a Jainist, so that we rid ourselves of the supernatural, superstitious mumbo jumbo. So let's just go with a pacifist, okay? A pacifist who lives let's say 7-8 decades, okay? So undergoes the standard Western lifestyle, or let's take him out of the West for the purposes of not affiliating him with Western imperialism. So it's just this. outside the West, outside the developed world pacifist lives not necessarily a great life, but a life that on his deathbed he does not regret. Now, to me, to equate that with something like, what was the example you wanted to analogize it to? I mean, your analogy was...
I'm saying the person has to be, what we're basically arguing about is, let's say we give you a chance to have your life relived again. Okay, so you're going to put your life in a new vessel, like a little girl or something. You're just going to put your destiny, your basic, the amount of pain and suffering you endured, the life you lived into somebody else's body because you think it's such a great idea. All right, so you're in purgatory and you're going to decide to impose this thing because you know your life was good. I'm just saying that I think in full knowledge purgatory, I don't think somebody's going to say their life was a success, enough of a success to impose on somebody else.
But see, you just demonstrated that you don't know what I'm arguing for, because what
you're saying said, their perception of their life as being a prophet is real.
It violates minding your own business. It violates it.
There is no minding your own business. It is a game played on a board. There's chess pieces. There's no minding your own business. It's impossible to play this game minding your own business.
Well, do we take this into a circle or do we move on? I'm just trying to decide.
Well, I don't think we can move on.
I'm just saying, what can I say that I haven't said?
Likewise, but I'm just saying that the point we're arguing, okay, is you're saying this life isn't fail. That there is some way to construct a life that is not a failure. And I'm arguing that no, the game is built out of hunger. You have to create the need first, the psychology that needs. And if you don't do that, there's nothing to eat here. There's no food. There's no rescue mission. That's what the rescue mission argument implies, is that if you don't have something to fix, there's no way to give the universe a gift. There's no way to create some manifestation of consciousness that is free lunchy.
Of course not. Of course not. But seeing as how we have individuals here who I'm going to argue are of sound mind, maybe, like I said a second ago, maybe I'm overestimating the number of such individuals. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's hell. According to you, it's zero. I'm not going to say it's anywhere close to zero. But when I say there's millions of them, okay, well, maybe there's only a couple of 100,000 of them. I'm flexible on that. My experience tells me that there is millions, perhaps even billions, if we're discussing adults, who you cannot go into their psychology with your own and try to evaluate whether they have that they're deluded to say that it was worth it. It's not a matter of fact. It's not an ontological issue. It is.
I think it is an IQ test. I think it is an IQ test. So yeah, I think I can test the veracity of their understanding. I can ask 1,000 questions, and they'll miss these people that you're saying are respectable, have respectable opinions. I'm going to say they're going to miss some fundamental questions that will point out the fact that they're living in a delusion, they're living a lie. And that's why their opinion is shit, is because they haven't properly understood the context of their existence.
Yeah, and the last time you brought this up, 20 minutes ago, you brought up evolution, and I just used Dawkins as an example, and then we got a Dawkins thing. Point is that Dawkins has a firm grasp of the subject matter. Obviously, it didn't do anything for him. Obviously, there are people who deny all this and yet have more.
And I counter-argued with my recipe. I made my point. I said that's why there's 1,000 questions on the IQ test and not 2. That's right. You have to have more than one ingredient to get reality. You can't know just that the planet is round and just that the sun is made out of hydrogen. You have to know a little more than that to get it right. And so, yeah, I pointed out Dawkins' voids. I pointed out Dawkins' vacuums, Dawkins' lack of understanding. So I'm saying that Dawkins is delusional. That's right. Okay, Dawkins has the human delusion. Dawkins is a humanist. He is obsessed with humans and human brains, and he thinks humans are doing something important. He thinks that shit.
Even if he is lacking in certain fields, I don't think it would be. I think it's very silly of us. I think it's very silly of us to think that any single human brain has a firm grasp of all the issues. We all have our weaknesses in certain areas because there's only so much time we can devote to studying what we've studied. And we're not going to study everything that there is. And there's not going to be this proportional intake of knowledge. We're always going to be fixated on specific issues that interest us.
I agree, but I'm just saying that what is ephilism beside what does my reductionism have to do with? It has to do with I think I've identified the key components, and if I made an argument for physics, I could argue that this is a physical model of the universe, and I'd say this model's correct. I'm saying I have a model of value reality, and it's correct. And people who don't get these answers right about what their psychology is actually doing, they have a delusion.
Okay, so say a person is fully aware of what his psychology is doing, and every time he engages in the whatever one-upmanship, I guess we can call it, there is a little voice there in the back of his head and says, you know what you're doing is bullshit, stop it. And slowly but surely, that voice starts getting louder and louder and louder, and then it weeds out the behavior. It weeds out the behavior before the behavior can even start. So we have an extremely disciplined individual who, for some reason beyond our comprehension, still sees the daily routine as worthy enough of adventure and decides to live it out. Now, you're going to say that's possible. Can you see why I would not be willing to take that at face value? Or do you think that I'm willing to take your assumption at face value is something more than what you summarized it before?
Well, again, I believe in the zero-sum game, so I'm not going to, I don't believe that person is, I believe I can find the delusion. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying if somebody's going to say my life was worth doing, okay, I'm glad it got done, it's a good thing for the universe that I existed. If they're going to say, I mean, outside the context of being on a rescue mission, being, like you said, some pacifist who just, for their own sake, enjoys their existence and says, the universe profited by having me experience my experiences. And I'm going to say that, yeah, okay, I think that person's living under a false understanding of the concept of what their existence was, which was just the creation of a desire machine that went out and acquired what was taken from it at birth. That they went into a negative spiral at birth, and all they were doing is chasing the sunlight, just trying to get back to flat land again. They were in a hole, and they dug their way out, and they're just not getting it. That's all they were accomplishing. All they can ever do was get their face up to the surface of the ocean. They'll never get any higher.
And that's the theory. And sometimes you portray the theory. I guess that's what fueled a lot of my criticism. Sometimes you portray the theory as like a hard science, a hard truth. It's conjecture, and you should be humble to that fact. And sometimes you get out of control.
Well, I'd say it's a hypothesis, or whatever you want to call it. It's a pre-theory, maybe. But I'm just saying that again, you're going to say that, okay, I'm saying give me the rational argument that tells me I'm wrong, and I say I haven't heard it yet, and you're saying that you're providing it, and others are saying they've provided it. Okay, I mean, people say they have explained the asymmetry. Do you think anybody has counter-argued the asymmetry?
Again, the whether you want to value the sensorial net product or the product of the maximized preferences, that's what also has to be taken into account when we're dealing with the asymmetry. Of course, I haven't read that book in a long time, and the first time I read it, I really only kind of skimmed it. So I'm not going to speak on that subject either way until I reread it.
I don't know, but if I was just to say, if I was going to put it in its simplest terms and just...
I haven't watched the counter arguments to the asymmetry, so I don't even know what they would start arguing to begin with.
Well, they would argue that you really can't prevent a harm because the future person doesn't exist yet, and that's the kind of silliness it is. They say the people who you're protecting don't exist, so therefore you didn't do anything, and it's idiotic, right? Because obviously they don't have to, a person doesn't have to exist for me to do them a favor. I can do them a favor 10,000 years from now. I can do somebody a favor.
Yes, Yeah, they would have. It's funny. A lot of these people also support environmental policies which aim to prevent future disasters.
Yeah, well, and obviously they would be willing to prevent nuclear meltdowns of atomic plants by precautionary measures. So obviously they love risk aversion, when it makes sense to them, and that's all it is,
Yeah,
right? It's a
just
conditional, yes, conditional risk aversion,
So, yeah, it's been about an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, I think it was a good conversation. I'm sorry I irritated you. I'm sorry you don't.
Well,
I'm sorry you don't feel like it's productive, but I do think it's productive. I think
I'm not saying I don't think it's not productive. I am just a little worried that it might be a bit of a rehash from the last two calls. So I'm not saying it was a bad talk. It just didn't exactly evolve much, and I was hoping it would evolve, and it just didn't.
Well, I know, but I think that's the whole point of evolution, though, is first you have to basically make this cell. So first we have to know what kind of evolution we're doing, whether we're doing eukaryotic or eukaryotic or what. I'm just saying. So we do have this dividing line where we're saying, yes, okay, in theory we agree that if people are only hurting themselves, they could be allowed to hurt themselves, and it's my conditional statement and your conditional statement. So we both agree about the imposition argument. Now the only real argument to make is this absolute argument about pragmatic practicality. How do you get there, and what cost to somebody's social rights are you allowed to commit to get there? I mean, that's where we seem to disagree. You don't like the idea of...
I'm taking World War III off the table, and you're not.
It's, right. Yeah, because I'm saying, well, from my perspective, the 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 years that the human beings could torture themselves in AK-47 wars, if I could prevent that with World War III, yeah, let's have World War III and get it over with, than have 10,000 years of human beings living in shit.
Yeah, and I'm just worried that